Good morning and welcome to ASI Radio's Tuesday morning show where we talk promo products and so much more. My name's Joe Haley. I'm here for the ride. Along with me is Dave Vagnoni, who's currently the senior editor of Counselor Magazine. And Dave just got off a week's vacation. So how do you feel, Dave? Rested, recharged, ready to go?
Don't want to be here at all, Joe.
Okay.
Thanks for rubbing it in. No, I feel good. It's nice to be back.
Okay.
I might change my mind by the afternoon, depending on how much work I have, but we'll see.
Well, most people in this area are sending their kids back to school, but your children aren't school age yet. So,
yeah, one in three.
Yeah, it's a little crazy this time of year for a lot of parents. So my sympathy out to them. I have two boys in college, and our home is very quiet right now.
Yeah, I'm sure you feel good about that.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. You know, it's an adjustment. The first time the adjustment was more difficult when both were away last year, but now you kind of get into a little, you're used to it and you have your patterns, and it's nice when they come home and visit. It's also nice when they go back to school in their element.
And a little more time with the wife, too.
Yes,
good,
that's right.
Yeah, right.
She tried to dig a stinger out of it. I got stung in the back of the neck yesterday.
That's romance for you, baby.
Yes, but she couldn't find it. I said, I got to get this
looking.
not there. Yeah, I know. She was looking in the wrong area anyway. All right. So this morning, joining us is Ron Williams, and he's the marketing director for 5 Promotional Products Group. He's the author of numerous articles, and his ability to develop, implement, manage, and analyze marketing strategies is well known throughout this industry. However, what you might not know is he's a retired healthcare provider. He was a doctor, and he possesses critical knowledge about the Affordable Care Act, which is also known to most people as Obamacare, and he's going to let us know today. We're going to talk about how it will affect large and small businesses and the opportunity that's going to be available out there to distributors. So, good morning, Ron, and welcome to the show.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you today? And Joe, I heard the story of your stinger incident, and I would probably suggest to you your wife intentionally did not remove it.
That could be the case. That could be the case. So, it's she was looking around and I can't find it. I'm like, okay. But I didn't complain about the rest of the day. I sucked it up and, I toughed it out.
Well, good.
All right, Ron. So we're going to talk about the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare. And you go online, you read papers and stuff, and it can be very complicated. So in plain English, what is the Affordable Care Act?
Well, everything you read on the internet is true. I mean, the internet, I read that on the internet that it's
Wikipedia, baby.
Yes.
Well, George Washington actually said that.
Yes, and I believe Al Gore invented the internet too, or something like that. But in a nutshell, gentlemen, what Obamacare is, it's mandated health care. There are 2 components to it. There is a individual consumer component, and there is a corporate or business component. Long story short, people must obtain health coverage or face penalties of varying degrees. If it's an individual, they and what is always interesting is that when this whole thing came about, and I have to tell everybody listening, I am an apolitical person. When I have given presentations for ASI on this, it doesn't matter to me, Republican, Democrat. I really don't care. What I do care about is how this affects people and how this affects our industry. So, long story short, the way that it affects our industry is it creates, probably in my opinion, the single greatest selling opportunity since I've been in this industry for almost 10 years. It used to be a long time ago. It used to be really easy for a lot of people to make a lot of money selling promotional items. But you talk to distributors, and every subsequent year it gets harder and more difficult, and the business models start to change slightly. You have some distributors that are e-commerce based, and they're fighting with guys who are out in the trenches and out in the streets and so on and so forth. But coming back to Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act, there's really 2 ways to look at it in regards to a business. In other words, the people listening, they're end users. 2 different ways. Number 1, if they have 49 or fewer employees, or if they have 50 or more. That's really what it boils down to, because there are certain rules and regulations pertaining to each of those 2 groups. There are certain things that are in effect right now that pertain to those 2 groups. They are not treated the same. They are treated separately. And what's also interesting is in August 14th, 1935, was probably the most sweeping change in our country's social policy. That's when the Social Security Act was passed. And there was roughly only about 14,000 words in that whole entire bill. And 75 years later, you fast track forward 75 years to March 23rd, 2010, and we have the Affordable Care Act, and there's almost 380,000 words in this bill. It was so convoluted, so complicated that House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, when this whole thing was going on, they said, well, if you want to know what's in it, you got to pass it. I mean, they really even didn't know. It's such a hodgepodge of coverage and rules and regulations and tax implications for individuals and businesses. It's really a snowball. But I want to be the first to say it's not all bad. There's it's like that old Clint Eastwood movie. You've got the good and the bad and the ugly with this thing. The good part of the Affordable Care Act is people can no longer be denied coverage because of pre-existing. College-age kids, like you had mentioned, Joe, can stay on their parents' policies longer, so on and so forth. But the ugly is it costs so much money to insure everyone, and it costs so much money to businesses that, everybody knows in this industry that when they, everybody tells their customers, when times are bad, the first thing you do, don't cut your marketing and advertising. Don't cut your own throat. But truth be told, gentlemen, that's the first place everybody cuts their expenditures. And this is no different. I just have to tell everybody listening that if a distributor, if a promotional products professional hones their skills, learns about the Affordable Care Act, learns the ins and outs, learns what truly a wellness program is and how it has to be compliant, they have an inordinately high opportunity, and they can truly distinguish themselves from their competition and really stand out, really be a professional. And then, price doesn't become an issue. They really become a value add. So long story short, the Affordable Care Act has provided the single greatest opportunity for selling in this industry since I've been involved in it.
Ron, I do want to talk about wellness opportunities, which you just brought up a little bit later. But I think what's confusing to a lot of people with this law from a business standpoint is everything in place as far as requirements, or is there more to come? You keep reading about things that have been pushed ahead and it's not going to be taking effect until 2018. Is everything cost-wise really in place today for a business, or is there truly more to come?
No, this thing rolls out in phases.
Right.
When it came out in 2010, it came out in its first iteration. Right now, we're on about iteration number 3.0. This thing has 6 distinct phases that it rolls through, and the final culmination year is 2018. So this thing is continually evolving. It's almost like a Frankenstein's monster. This thing is continually evolving. It's continually changing. It is continually overwriting and replacing previously passed things. As a matter of fact, just this summer, there was a Supreme Court case. And this thing is always being challenged by people. There was a Supreme Court case, and what's interesting, gentlemen, it has to do with the government subsidies. That it has to do with like healthcare.gov and the state insurance exchanges and so on and so forth. And the law, when it was originally passed, it specifically states that an individual can only receive a government subsidy for their health insurance coverage if and only if they obtain insurance coverage via a state exchange. It's very clear. That's what it says. Well, the problem is since 2010, and everybody has, and we've all heard about the healthcare.gov fiasco, the web, and all this kind of stuff. What's been happening since then is that everybody is getting government subsidies from state and at the federal exchange. So a group of individuals took this to the Supreme Court. And recently, just in June of this year, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the federal government that they can, in fact, give subsidies to individuals who have obtained insurance coverage from healthcare.gov as well as state insurance exchanges. What's also interesting on that fact, gentlemen, is that 88% of every single individual who is receiving insurance through a state exchange or healthcare.gov, 88% receive a federal subsidy. So that means the money's got to come from somewhere, and something is picking up and paying for the slack. And where this money is coming from are companies and businesses.
That's a problem, isn't it? I mean,
Duh.
I know you're apolitical, but is this government overreach that's affecting distributors and suppliers and small and mid-sized companies? I mean, is this from your experience, from what you're hearing out there, a problem?
I mean, gentlemen, it's really easy to understand when somebody kind of takes a step back and looks at the numbers, okay? In March of 2010, the CBO, the Congressional Budgetary Office, when they worked up this initial Affordable Care Act, they said, based upon their estimates, this program, the funding of this insurance is going to cost $898 billion. That's what they said back in March of 2010. Now, in February of 2014, the CBO went back, redid their calculations, and they said, oh, we made a mistake. It's going to cost $2 trillion to put this plan into play. Now, we hear stuff about the federal deficit and the money. It's almost like it's not even real money to us. It's like monopoly money. It doesn't really mean anything. But what people don't understand is how much really is $1 trillion? I mean, we can say, oh yeah, that costs $1 trillion, that costs $1 billion. I mean, really, how much is it? Well, here's a real easy way to kind of break it down. If you have 1 million seconds, that comes out to 12 days. All right, 1 million seconds is 12 days. 1 billion seconds with a B is 32 years. Now, 1 trillion seconds are 31,688 years. It's a huge, huge number that we don't really give credence to. So what I have always said in the presentations that I've given for ASI and for others, this is a completely unsustainable plan. While the premise is good, and while people need to, be able to have coverage, that's not the issue. The issue is, how do you pay for this? If you want to do all of this, how are you going to fund this? And what I've been telling everybody is based upon the business taxes that are coming out slowly. Every quarter there's a new tax or so on and so forth. The only place that the government is going to get the money to be able to fund the Affordable Care Act, it's from business taxation. And I'm telling you, it's already started, and it's going to increase. There's going to be about 3 or 4 additional taxes in the end of this year, and then next year there's going to be a whole another slew of taxes.
Ron, I still want to stay on the effect to people in this industry. I know that a lot of distributors out there, their sales reps are independent contractors. They work on either a split or straight commission. How does that affect? Does Obamacare affect that? Do employers now have to offer them insurance, or do they have to go find their own insurance?
No, when employees are under contract, it's almost like they're individuals. So an individual is mandated now, they must have insurance coverage. Every single American citizen must have insurance coverage or pay a penalty to the Internal Revenue Service when they file their taxes.
What is that penalty? The
penalty is roughly, it's very, very minimal. If you're an individual, I believe I'm going to give you a number. This isn't necessarily accurate, but I want to say it's about $100, $99, something like that, for an individual who, when it comes tax time, if they don't have insurance coverage.
What happens to businesses if they don't do what they're asked to do as far as penalties?
Their penalties can actually be anywhere up to $21,000 to $27,000 per employee.
And then one of the things we heard early on with this rollout of this plan was that you have to work a certain amount of hours. Is that still in effect? So can companies start limiting the hours that the employees come in, therefore not being affected by the Obamacare?
No, because they've got a way around that. What they're doing is they're actually ratcheting down, and this is going on in Congress right now. They're talking about it. They're arguing about, quote, what is a full-time person, because some companies were like, oh, well, if 40 hours is deemed a full-time person, then we're going to have people work 35 hours, so therefore they fall underneath, that cap kind of thing. Well, the powers that be kind of got wind of that, and so now they're ratcheting down. The hours, mandatory hours per delineated full-time worker, and what they're actually going to end up doing. And you're hearing it here first. What they're actually going to end up doing is they're going to be taking all of their employees, full and part-time, and they're going to be coupling part-time employees. So they're going to be counting their hours together.
Wow. Considering the breadth of this, Ron, we could go on for hours, and maybe people should attend your presentations when you go to ASI shows. Is there a good place to look for resources and for updated information? If you're a business owner and you realize you're being impacted by this and you don't have super amount of time to spend looking into it, where's a good place to look for information?
Well, if you happen to be if you're a distributor, the best thing the best advice I can give anybody in this industry is they need to talk to suppliers, excuse me, that they trust, and they need to ask these questions to them. Can they help them? Can they truly be a partner with them? Can they steer them in the right direction? That's one aspect. Now, when it comes to a personal aspect about what you're responsible for and what burdens you're looking at, you have to rely upon standard, normal government stuff like HHS, your state attorney generals, information, and things like that. That kind of gets the ball rolling, and those types of locations and sources give you additional links and opportunities to be able to go out and actually find some additional information. Excuse me. What I want everybody to know, though, is this is not something that's going away. People think that they can repeal this. People think it's going to change, so on and so forth. And I'm telling you, this is not going away. The ultimate end game is for our country to actually roll into a one-payer system. And it's coming. There's no way to avoid it. And I'm not saying that that's bad or that's good or whatever. I'm just telling you that's what the end game is. But there's a bigger reason why this whole thing is happening. And it's actually a trend, Joe. It's not something that's just in the United States. I mean, there is a health trend that is worldwide. As a matter of fact, the United States of America spends almost $300 billion a year on health foods. That's people, consumers. And the question is, who are these people that are spending all this money? Well, up until this point, it's been the baby boomers. They're the ones that are driving the economic bus. As a matter of fact, the baby boomers have 42% of all of the income in the United States. That's about, $2.5 trillion a year. That's what these people spend. So distributors that are listening to me, your customers are baby boomers, and they want and are interested in health and healthy living. So that's the trend of the sales. That's what a distributor should start to focus on. It's, hey, I'm going to have to kind of follow this trend if I want to be relevant in the future.
So with the health and well-being programs that distributors should be offering to their clients, what types of things are required, or are there aspects that are required by insurance companies, that they say, okay, you're doing something here, this will lower premiums for you?
There are two programs that any company will use in regards to health and wellness. One is called a participatory program, and that means their employees can say, or their company can go, you know what, if you want to join the YMCA, we'll pay for your membership. Or, if you want to go to this health club, we'll pay for your membership. They don't track it, they don't monitor it, they don't do anything. That's called participatory. Some companies do that. The other end of the spectrum, where companies will end up by 2016, it's called inclusive. And that is where a company has a specific delineated program that addresses a specific health problem. So distributors need to think diseases like diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, obesity, things like that. It's a specific disease that a program is specifically designed to target and drive the metrics down. And by the metrics, I mean things like blood pressure before and after, weight before and after. Do they have nicotine in their blood before and after? All of those types of things are becoming the mandate for companies. And the mandate is coming from the government on down to the insurance company, their insurance carrier. And their carriers are saying, okay, guys, we understand your health insurance costs have gone up 40%. Yep, we know. But there's a bigger pie here, and everybody's got to kind of chip in. However, if you want your costs to go down, you have got to start doing A, B, C, D, E. And the A, B, C, D, E are these specific programs that target specific costly health conditions.
So where do promotional products, Ron, fit in? What types of products? Is it a pedometer? Is it what? I mean, what out there should distributors honestly be pitching that could be part of these programs where a company will say, okay, yeah, that would make sense with my program?
Well, number one, they can't just walk in off the street and think that they're going to be able to crack this nut. They're not going to be able to. There's only one person that a distributor should talk to about this and about gaining entry into the health aspect of a company, and that's through the HR department. It's not sales, it's not marketing, it's not the president. It is HR. That is it. And what they want from us is a turnkey system. So that means a distributor needs to come in and say, you know what, I've got 5 programs that will address 5 of the major issues that your employees have. Like I mentioned before, high blood pressure, diabetes, so on and so forth. And what they do is they simply lay out a program, and the program is filled with incentives or promotional items such as trophies, plaques, awards, ribbons, stress balls, pedometers. They have to create this program, and then they plug in the appropriate promotional item. That's how this works. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense.
It does. I think distributors are a little bit apprehensive because it's a large amount of stuff associated with this. And we'll say to them at shows and through the magazines, wellness is a market really you should be invested in, but it's a lot to sort of comprehend. I think that is where the block is right now.
You know what? Let me give you just a few things just to drive this home. Okay. Now I told you and everyone listening, the baby boomers are the driving force right now. Okay. There was no denying that fact. Now the baby boomers, there are 76 million baby boomers. Every single day, 10,000 baby boomers hit retirement age. So what has to happen is you have to look at who's coming behind them. Well, the next group behind the boomers are the Generation Xers, and then behind them are the millennials. Now, there's something interesting about these 3 specific groups. Number one, did you guys know that 77% of all prescription drugs, 77% are purchased by baby boomers?
Makes sense.
77%. So when you're sitting at home and you're watching TV and you see these ads come on for medication, who do you see in these ads? You see baby boomers, because it's all about blood sugar. It's all about depression. You guys get where I'm going with this? That's who they're targeting. Why are they targeting them? Because that's who the buyer is. That's who is buying this. And as a matter of fact, over-the-counter medications, 61% of all over-the-counter medications are bought by baby boomers. So baby boomers are sick and tired of being sick and tired. They want their health back. And let me tell you something. The Generation Xers, their kids, they don't want to end up like their parents, so they're even more concerned about their health. That's why the Whole Foods market has boomed, and organic and non-GMO and gluten-free stuff. These things don't happen by accident, gentlemen. It's a trend, and it follows a logical progression. And if a salesperson or a company is able to look at the trend in what's happening now and where's it going in the future, I'm telling you guys, it's like shooting fish in a barrel.
All right, Ron. We don't have schedule yet for upcoming education next year. Will you be presenting this again at ASI shows?
Actually, no, I won't. ASI has not asked me to present.
Well, that was awkward.
Well, in that case, Ron, if people have more questions, how can they contact you?
They can call me. They can reach me. At my office here. They can always email me at Ron Williams with an S at FEY line.com, or a really, really easy email. It's ronw@myline.com, MILINE.com.
All right, Ron. Well, thank you very much for your time. It was very, very educational.
And sorry about the awkwardness.
That's okay. That's on me.
Ron, you take care, man. I'll see you.
Have a good day, gentlemen.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Wow.
That schedule changes, though, Joe.
I know it
in
does.
All fairness.
It does.
So it's
Skate.
possible
That
that Ron's
was-
not going to be in Orlando or Dallas, but he could be in Chicago.
And
So
I
you're-
could easily check and say, "Oh, are you on the schedule?" Okay, so we'll not for that. All right, Dave, you've got a bunch of point counterpoints or things. To
Yeah,
talk
you know,
about?
we had the first ever ASI Radio debate in the summer, you and me. So we're going to bring it back for the last 5 minutes of this show. So maybe we'll get through 2 questions. I'm going to ask a question, Joe.
All right.
And you could tell me your thoughts on it. So
All
we're
right.
going to have a little back and forth. So I asked you earlier in the summer, is Alibaba a threat to the industry? And we talked about that. We really said no. How about Custom Inc.? Is Custom Inc. a threat to the industry?
No, it's not, because they're actually a listed distributor. They've found a different channel to be able to market their products. I've seen their commercials on TV. It's a smart way to do it. And if distributors want to say, hey, that's a threat, well, why don't you consider doing that? Create commercials, create quick turnaround on small size orders, so people who have, a 12 t-shirt need, 6 t-shirt needs, and someone doesn't want to do it, they're going to do it, then get into that market.
Yeah, see, I think it is a bit of a threat because I think it's a threat to the smaller companies. Custom Inc., they're targeting the 12-person order. And that's what decorators do in a lot of small areas. So I don't feel like it's a threat to the big shots in the industry. Although I think that it does lead to the idea that there's a customization trend out there, and the big companies better get websites that people can go on and design stuff really easily. So I don't think it's an immediate threat to the big companies. I do think it's a bit of a threat, and I think we'll start to see that play out a little bit more in the future for the smaller companies.
Well, those smaller companies got to work those relationships, and it's still
Well, sure.
a relationship business, So if you can keep your relationships good, they're not going to look elsewhere.
It's generational, though. I think boomers are more likely to be okay with those relationships. I think my generation and younger generations will just go online and see the commercials, and this and that's so fun and cool. I think that's where down the line you could see some issues. All right, Joe, question number 2, are green promotional products dead?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
It's very cyclical. You'll see this, it'll peak and then start to, ease off, and then 5 years later it'll be back and it'll peak and ease off and peak and ease off. So is it dead? No, I just think it's cyclical.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that it is cyclical. There's a company in Canada, one of the fastest growing distributors in the industry annually, a company called Fairware. And what they do is they just sell green products. They sell green promotional products. They go on websites of companies and they look for sustainability mission statements. And if they see those mission statements tied to sustainability, they realize, okay, this company needs to put their marketing dollars where their mouths are. So they go after those companies. And they've been very successful, getting a lot of good companies, big time companies on their roster.
The trend coming up is going to be green wearables technology.
Yeah, I
so
think that's
we're
true,
gonna take
too.
the 2 things, the green products and the wearable technology, and they're going to start to
Because
merge
as
that.
Ron alluded to, millennials and younger generations are interested in wellness and
Yes.
interested in the green types of products. Studies have actually shown, and this is why you see Walmart, you see Target, large companies on TV, as far as their commercials go, doing a lot with this type of sustainability, focusing on the environment. It's what the younger generations want. All right, move on to a couple more questions. Joe, is going direct capitalism or industry crime? What do you think?
It's both. There's no. I mean, there are suggested guidelines of how we operate in this industry. Supplier sells to the distributor sells it to the end buyer. We keep that relationship going, and everyone's happy. But there's no real law that says you can't do it. There's risk in doing that.
Sure.
There's risk in doing that. You risk alienating your client. So if I have a distributor and they've got a client and I go direct to that client, well, now I've alienated this distributor and possibly losing sales from all these other clients that they might have. Plus, the distributor really is the sales force for suppliers. I mean, you can be a small company. I used to have a friend who used to do mugs in Lansdale, PA, and they had clients out in Seattle. They couldn't do that without a distributor base.
Yeah, I don't think it's industry crime. I mean, I've been over to China. I've seen distributors there. I know decorators go direct. Now, everyone's doing this, and I don't like it when folks walk up to me or walk up to you or walk up to someone else at ASI and say, ASI needs to be like FIFA or ASI needs to be like the NCAA and regulate this stuff. No, ASI is in this to help people make money.
Right.
And if you can make money doing this, sure, you might burn bridges, but that's the risk you're taking on personally as a company. If you can make money, go do it. That's my opinion on it.
There you go.
All right. That's all the time we have, Joe. I wish we had time for more questions.
Oh, man, I thought you were going to about the Federal.
All right, well, let's ask that. Go ahead. It's
the
next
Fed.
on the list. The Fed. Should the Fed raise rates this year or not?
Well, I think you should
I have
raise
a strong
it.
opinion on this, but
You should raise it if the economy's good. But how good is the economy?
Economy
It's
is not
up
good,
and down.
Joe.
It's up and down.
Yeah.
So I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
Not time to raise them.
GDP in the first quarter was awful. GDP in the second quarter, I think, will be revised down. A lot of the durables numbers show that the third quarter GDP is not going to be great. And I think if you look closer at the jobs numbers, the unemployment rate keeps going down. But look at how much money people are getting in raises with their take-home pay. It's like a nickel a month that it goes up. So you can't raise rates when disposable incomes are so poor. I think it will have a ripple effect. Look what's going on on China. Look, just the threat of the Fed raising rates. The market plunged a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Do we really want that? Is that what the Fed should be doing when they've already come this far? I don't think it's smart. I think it's possible the Fed will raise rates in December. I think March is just as likely. I don't think September's happening at all.
And the quarterly jobs, listing, it's. I think it's all smoke and mirrors because they don't talk about the amount of people who have left the workforce and are not coming
They talk
back.
about it in paragraph 6, right? Which is that's
You're
just
done.
reality.
Yeah.
That's just reality.
You're done. All right, you are right, Dave. That is all the time we have. We'd like to thank Ron Williams again for joining us, explaining the Affordable Care Act. Thanks to Dave being here, and Lauren and Vinny for manning all the electronics. And we'll be back next week. That's it.
See
Goodbye.
ya.